Hi everybody, it's me. Long time no see. Fair warning, this video is probably going to end up being 2 videos. That being because I want to explain why I've not been on for so long and give you all just some information that I consider to be need to know, especially if you're pre-op. You know, it's something to think about. But anyway, so I have officially had my 3rd hospital stay since my surgery in June. Seems to be every 2 months or 6 weeks or so I'm in the hospital. I got sick right after I made the last video on November 11th. I couldn't even eat at Thanksgiving. There was no sense in even worrying about that. I tried to eat, but by the time Thanksgiving got here I was already sick, and by sick I do mean vomiting, and this time it was so much worse. So much worse, like you wouldn't believe. Most of my hair has fallen out from the malnutrition. It was bad. I didn't even have to eat to throw up this time. It just, anything, water, spit. I didn't even have to swallow anything to throw up this time. It was just bad. I went to my follow-up appointment from my previous hospital stay on December the 3rd. Dr. Tanner took one look at me and said, "You need to go into the hospital," which of course it didn't help that I arrived at my appointment with a plastic Tupperware bowl, and I'm heaving to the point where people stopped us and made me take a wheelchair because I couldn't walk without throwing up. So yeah, it was pretty bad. So I got admitted December 3rd. My diagnosis was what's called intractable vomiting, which more or less means, I think I've said this before because it's been my diagnosis a few times now, that they don't know why I'm throwing up. There's no reason for it whatsoever. Joy! So I ended up spending 7 days. It seemed like longer than that, but I spent 7 complete days in the hospital before the doctors finally decided that there was nothing that they could do for me, that home health couldn't do. I've never experienced that in my life, where you're in the hospital, you're sick enough that they give you a PICC line because you're so dehydrated they cannot put it anywhere. Once again, I got stuck just about everywhere, and then they were like, "You know what, we're just going to do a PICC line and call it good." But I'm still throwing up 7 days later, despite Phenergan, despite Zofran, despite IV fluids. I'm just hurling all the time, and the doctors come in and say, "We can't do anything for you." That's scary, because all I'm thinking is, you know, I sat in the hospital and cried, and I was like, I made this decision, and you know, now I'm gonna die young, and my children are gonna be stuck with their deadbeat dad, and you know, I've spent all this time working on a college degree, and I'm not even going to be able to use it. I can't walk at this point. I started having double vision in the hospital, so I couldn't even see anything. People were talking to me, and I'm looking off into La La Land because there's no sense trying to focus on them. It would give me a headache to try to focus on something. So they sent me home, still vomiting. They called in home health, They left my PICC line in. For those of you who don't know what a PICC line is, that's a PICC line. I had IV fluids and IV Phenergan and Zofran. And then once they figured out that I had some pretty serious vitamin deficiencies, I had IV vitamins that they would call in, the ones that I was deficient in. I had to do those. And it's really hard to push that much liquid over the course of 5 minutes. Very hard to do. Anyway, so that's where I've been. I got out of the hospital. They took me to my grandmother's house, and I spent up until last Sunday, not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before, at her house. I've got an alarm that tells me that I need to make sure I'm drinking my water. Anyway, she has a walker and a potty chair that goes over the actual potty, not the kind that, sits in the bedroom with you, but something that I could push myself up from, and a wheelchair at her house. So I ended up going to stay with her, and my grandmother and my mother and my fiance and my sister were all coming over to change my fluids and give me shots of stuff, and it was just bad. But now I'm going to stop talking for just a second, and then part 2 of this update is going to be the one that tells you the details, what my diagnosis actually is, because they finally figured that out and what they're doing to treat that. I'll be right back.